Daniel never thought a single act of kindness would turn his world upside down. He wasn't a hero, not in the way movies or news stories define the word. He was just a dad, a man who woke up every morning with the same goal: keep his daughter safe, keep the lights on, and make it through another day. But sometimes the world doesn't care about your intentions. Sometimes the world only cares about the story it wants to tell. It started on a Thursday, the kind of day that slips by unnoticed. Daniel's alarm went off at 6:15 a.m., as it always did. He didn't hit snooze. He never did. There was no luxury for that in his life. He moved with the practiced efficiency of someone who had learned that every minute counted. The apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes from routine, not peace. He padded down the hallway, past the crayon drawings his daughter Mia had taped to the wall, past the leaky ceiling stain he kept meaning to call the landlord about. The kitchen was small, but it was theirs. He filled the kettle, set it on the stove, and started breakfast. Mia appeared in the doorway, her hair a wild halo, wearing one of his old T-shirts as pajamas. She was 8, but sometimes her eyes looked older, like she was carrying secrets she didn't know how to share. "Eggs or cereal?" he asked. "Eggs, scrambled," she replied, climbing onto a chair and pulling her knees to her chest. He smiled, cracked 3 eggs into a bowl, and whisked them with a fork. The routine was automatic, comforting. It was the anchor that kept him steady. "Is today your late day?" Mia asked, her voice small. "Nope, home by 6, just like always." "Promise?" Daniel paused, remembering the one time he'd been late, the way she'd waited on the steps with Mrs. Chen from 3B. "Promise," he said, and meant it. They walked to the bus stop together, Daniel carrying her backpack even though she insisted she was big enough. The October air was sharp, hinting at winter. At the corner, other parents gathered, exchanging sleepy nods and half-hearted small talk. When the bus arrived, Mia hugged him quickly, then joined the line of kids. She turned to wave before disappearing inside. Daniel watched until the bus was out of sight, then checked his watch. If he hurried, he'd make the 8:15 train. Work was work. Northway Consulting, 3 floors of glass and steel, open-plan offices designed for collaboration but better suited for distraction. Daniel had been there 4 years, a data analyst among 17 others. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. Steady mattered. Steady paid for strawberry jam and field trip forms and the apartment with the leaky ceiling. By late afternoon, Daniel was thinking about dinner when the email arrived. "Team celebration tonight. The Kensington deal is done. Mandatory attendance for all team leads and senior analysts. Drinks on the company. 7 p.m. sharp." Daniel's stomach tightened. Mandatory meant he couldn't say no. It meant scrambling for childcare, texting Mrs. Chen and hoping she was free. She replied within minutes, "No problem, sweetheart. Go have fun." He smiled at the message, though fun wasn't the word he'd use. The anchor room was the kind of place where executives took clients to impress them. Exposed brick, leather booths, cocktails with names Daniel couldn't pronounce. He wore his best suit, the one Janet from accounting had once called reliable. The private room was already loud when he arrived. 30 people, maybe more, clustered around high-top cables. Appetizers sat untouched, drinks flowed freely. Daniel nursed a ginger ale, keeping to the edges. Victoria Hale, his boss's boss, stood near the window, surrounded by executives. She was sharp, always impeccably dressed, with a presence that made people straighten their backs. Daniel had spoken to her maybe 5 times in 2 years. She wasn't warm, but she was respected. By 8:30, the party was thinning. The executives left, the noise level dropped, and Victoria was at the bar, her composure slipping. Her assistant, Claire, tried to convince her to call a car. "I'm fine," Victoria insisted, but she wasn't. Daniel watched as she tried to stand and nearly fell. He hesitated. This wasn't his problem. He barely knew her, but no one else moved. Claire looked desperate. Daniel crossed the room. "Miss Hale, let me call you a car," he said gently.
She blinked at him, trying to focus. "Who are you?" "Daniel Brooks, Data Team." "Data," she repeated, as if the word meant nothing. Claire explained that her apartment was 15 minutes away, but she had to leave. "I'll take her," Daniel said, surprising himself. He regretted it immediately, but the decision was made. Victoria's head lolled against the window as Daniel drove. Her address was in Riverside Towers, a luxury building overlooking the water. The drive was silent except for her heavy breathing. In the lobby, the security guard looked up. "Company party?" Daniel explained. "Which floor?" 14. "I can help." "I've got her," Daniel said, guiding Victoria to the elevator. Inside her apartment, Daniel eased her onto the couch. He slipped off her heels, found a blanket, and left a glass of water on the table. He texted her work number. "Made sure you got home safe. Water on the table. Door is locked. Daniel Brooks." On his way out, he made sure the door was locked behind him. The security guard nodded. "Good man," he said. Daniel drove home, paid Mrs. Chen, and checked on Mia. She was asleep, clutching her stuffed elephant. He collapsed into bed, exhausted, but certain he'd done the right thing. The next morning, Daniel's phone buzzed as he was halfway through his second cup of coffee at work. The message was from Victoria Hale. 4 words. "Did you touch me last night?" He stared at the screen, the words blurring. He read them again, his hands suddenly cold. He started typing a response, deleted it, started again. "I drove you home from the anchor room. You were on the couch when I left. I didn't touch you." 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then appeared again. "We need to talk. My office, 10 a.m. Daniel's heart hammered in his chest. Around him, the office hummed with its usual rhythm. Keyboard clicks, low conversations, the hum of the HVAC. No one looked at him. No one knew. He glanced at the clock. 1 hour and 13 minutes. He tried to focus on his work, but the numbers on the screen made no sense. At 9:30, his phone rang. Internal number. "Daniel Brooks, this is Lydia Marsh from Human Resources. We need you to come to Conference Room B immediately." "I have a meeting with Miss Hale at 10. This is more urgent. Please come now." The line went dead. Daniel stood, legs unsteady. He walked past Janet's desk, past Marcus, past the row of analysts who didn't look up. Conference Room B was small and windowless. 3 people waited. Lydia Marsh, a man in an expensive suit, and Victoria Hale, sitting perfectly still, her face unreadable. "Mr. Brooks, please sit," Lydia said. The man in the suit introduced himself as Robert Keene, General Counsel for Northway Consulting. "We've received a complaint regarding your conduct at last night's company event." Daniel's mouth went dry. "What complaint?" Lydia glanced at Victoria, then back at him. "Miss Hale has indicated that she has questions about what occurred after the party ended." "I drove her home," Daniel said. "She was intoxicated. I made sure she got inside safely." "Did you enter her apartment?" Keene asked. "Yes, to make sure she got to the couch." "Did you touch her?" "I helped her walk. She couldn't stand on her own." "Did you touch her in any inappropriate manner?" "No, absolutely not." Silence. Victoria spoke for the first time, her voice quiet. "I don't remember last night. I woke up on my couch. My shoes were off. I don't remember you taking them off." "I didn't want you to be uncomfortable. You were alone with me in my apartment to help you," Daniel said, his voice barely above a whisper. Keene leaned forward. "Mr. Brooks, you understand this is a sensitive situation. We take all complaints seriously. Until we complete our investigation, you're being placed on paid administrative leave." "Investigation? I didn't do anything wrong." "That's what the investigation will determine," Lydia said. "We'll need you to surrender your access badge and leave the premises immediately." Daniel looked at Victoria. She met his eyes for half a second, then looked away. "You know I didn't do anything," he said. She didn't respond. "Miss Hale?" prompted Lydia. "I know what the optics are," Victoria said quietly, "and I know what's required." Within 6 hours, Daniel Brooks became a ghost in his own life. By noon, his work email was deactivated. He tried to log in to finish a project, but was met with an error message, "Access denied. Please contact IT." By 2 p.m., someone from IT called to arrange pickup of his laptop. A kid who sounded about 22, awkward and apologetic, said he'd be by the apartment tomorrow morning. "Just following protocol," the kid said, as if protocol explained everything. By 5 p.m., the first text message arrived from a colleague. "Marcus, dude, what happened?" Daniel didn't respond. What could he say? "I helped someone, and now I'm being investigated for assault." There were no words that wouldn't sound either pathetic or defensive, so he said nothing. The next morning, Daniel didn't get dressed for work. He sat at the kitchen table while Mia ate cereal, her backpack already loaded for school, and tried to figure out what his life looked like now. The apartment felt different in the daylight, exposed somehow, like a stage set waiting for actors who would never arrive. "You're not going to work?" Mia asked, her spoon pausing halfway to her mouth. "Not today, sweetheart." "Are you sick?" "Just taking some time off." She studied him with those serious eyes, the ones that saw more than he wanted them to. "Okay," she said finally, and went back to her cereal, but he could tell she didn't believe him. After the bus came, Daniel sat alone in the silent apartment. His phone buzzed intermittently, messages from numbers he didn't recognize. He ignored them all. On day 3, Lydia Marsh called. "Mr. Brooks, we need to schedule a follow-up interview. The investigation is ongoing. We've reviewed security footage from Miss Hale's building. We've spoken with the guard on duty. We've examined the timeline, and we need to speak with you again tomorrow at 10 a.m. He arrived early. The same conference room, the same 3 people. Keene opened a folder. "We've confirmed your account of the evening. Security footage shows you entering the building at 10:30 p.m. and exiting at 10:44 p.m. 14 minutes. The guard confirms you appeared to be assisting Miss Hale and that you spoke briefly on your way out."
Relief flooded through Daniel. "So we're done?" "Not exactly," Lydia said. "While we found no evidence of misconduct, we have to consider the broader situation." "What situation?" Keene folded his hands. "Perception, Mr. Brooks. Optics. Company culture. I don't understand. You were alone with a female superior in her home while she was incapacitated. Even though your actions appear to have been well-intentioned, the situation creates complications." "Complications?" Daniel repeated flatly. "Several employees have expressed concern," Lydia added, "about whether the company takes these situations seriously, about what message we're sending." "What message?" "I helped someone who needed help." "We appreciate that," Keene said, "but we have to think about precedent, about liability, about what happens if we restore you to your position and questions remain." Daniel felt the room tilt. "Questions from who?" "From anyone," Lydia said gently. "This is about protecting everyone involved, including you." No one answered. Keene slid a document across the table. "We're prepared to offer you a severance package. 3 months' salary, neutral reference, you resign effective immediately, and we all move forward." "And if I don't sign?" "Then the investigation remains open, pending indefinitely, which means you remain on unpaid leave, which means eventually we can terminate for cause based on violation of conduct policies." Daniel stared at the paper. 3 months. He had maybe 2 weeks' worth of savings. "I need time to think." "You have until Monday," Keene said. Daniel spent the next few days in a fog of disbelief. The apartment felt hollow, the walls echoing with a silence that had never existed before. He walked from room to room, touching the familiar objects as if they might whisper a secret that would change his fate. The kitchen table, still set with a half-filled mug of coffee, the crayon drawings on the fridge, the tiny scar on the hallway floor where Mia had once tripped.
Each detail was a reminder that his life had been ordinary, painfully ordinary, and now it was being rewritten by someone else's perception. Mia, oblivious to the corporate drama unfolding behind the scenes, carried on with the stubborn resilience that children often possess. She asked for pancakes on Saturday, for a trip to the park on Sunday, for a new set of markers. Daniel answered each request with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He tried to explain, in simple terms, that sometimes grown-ups make mistakes that they can't fix, but the words fell flat. "It's just a bad day, sweetie," he would say, and she would nod, trusting his reassurance even when his own heart was cracking.
The HR emails kept arriving, each one more formal than the last. "Please attend a follow-up interview. Your access badge will be deactivated at 5 p.m. Severance package details attached." The language was clinical, devoid of empathy, and each notification felt like another lock being placed on a door that Daniel could no longer open. He printed the severance offer, stared at the figures, and imagined the months ahead. Rent, groceries, Mia's school fees, the occasional treat he could afford, nothing more. The thought of being a single parent without the safety net of a steady paycheck was terrifying, but the idea of staying in a place that had turned on him was equally unbearable. On Wednesday, Daniel called a friend from his old college days, a guy named Sam who had started his own tech startup. Sam listened quietly, then said, "You're not a liability, Dan. You're a father who did the right thing. If a company can't see that, they're the ones who are wrong." The words were a lifeline. Daniel hung up and felt a flicker of hope. He could leave Northway, but he could also use this experience to build something new, something that didn't depend on a corporate hierarchy or on the whims of a boss who could become a liability with a single drink. The next morning, after a sleepless night, Daniel went to the park with Mia. The air was crisp, the trees shedding their orange leaves, and the playground was alive with children's laughter. He watched Mia swing higher and higher, her ponytail bouncing, her face lit with pure joy. In that moment, Daniel realized that his purpose was not defined by a job title or a salary. It was defined by the safety he could provide, the love he could give, and the example he could set. He decided then and there to turn the tragedy into a catalyst for change. He returned home, opened his laptop, and began drafting a plan. The first step was to document everything: timestamps, emails, text messages, the security footage he had requested from the building's management, witnesses' statements. He sent a polite request to the security guard at Riverside Towers, asking for a copy of the footage from the night of the incident. The guard replied, "We'll forward it to you within 48 hours. Daniel saved the email, knowing that the footage could be the key to clearing his name. The second step was to reach out to a legal aid organization that helped single parents facing workplace discrimination. He found a nonprofit called Family Justice Alliance, and after a short phone call, he was assigned an attorney named Carla. Carla listened to his story, asked detailed questions, and assured him that the company's optics argument was a common tactic used to push out employees who didn't fit a certain narrative. She advised him to preserve all communications, to avoid any further contact with HR unless through her, and to prepare a written statement that could be submitted to the company's grievance committee. Daniel spent the next 2 days compiling his written statement. He described the night at the Anchor Room, the events that led to him driving Victoria home, the steps he took to ensure her safety, and the subsequent harassment he faced. He emphasized that his actions were driven by a sense of responsibility and empathy, not by any personal gain. He attached screenshots of the text message he had sent, the email from HR, and the copy of the severance offer. He sent it to Carla, who replied with a brief acknowledgement and a promise to review it carefully. On Friday, the security footage arrived. Daniel watched it with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. The grainy black-and-white video showed him entering the building, walking through the lobby, and then stepping into the elevator with Victoria.
The camera caught the moment they exited the elevator, the hallway outside her apartment, and the door closing behind them. The footage also captured Daniel's hands as he gently helped Victoria onto the couch, the blanket he placed over her, and the glass of water he set on the table. There was no sign of any impropriety, no lingering touch beyond what was necessary to assist a visibly intoxicated adult. The footage was a silent witness to his good intentions. When Carla received the footage, she called Daniel immediately. "This is solid, Dan," she said, her voice steady. "We have a clear, objective record that you acted responsibly. The next step is to present this to the company's grievance committee and request an immediate reinstatement and a public apology." Daniel felt a surge of relief. He could see a path forward, a chance to reclaim his professional reputation and, more importantly, to protect his daughter from the stigma that had already begun to spread at school.
He drafted another email, this time addressed to the grievance committee, attaching the footage, his written statement, and a request for a meeting. He explained that the company's actions had caused him severe emotional distress, financial instability, and that his daughter was being bullied because of rumors. He asked for a formal apology, reinstatement with back pay, and a policy review to prevent future incidents where employees are punished for acts of kindness. The response came the following Monday. The committee, after reviewing the footage and statements, agreed to a meeting on Wednesday. The meeting was set in a neutral conference room with Lydia Marsh, Robert Keene, and the committee chair, a senior partner named Elaine. Daniel arrived early, his heart pounding, but his mind clear. He rehearsed his opening line, his mind to keep the tone factual, not confrontational. When the meeting began, Elaine opened with a brief overview. "We have reviewed the evidence presented by Mr. Brooks," she said. "The footage confirms that Mr. Brooks acted in a manner consistent with assisting a colleague who was incapacitated." She turned to Daniel. "Do you have anything you'd like to add?" Daniel spoke slowly, his voice steady. "I did what any decent human being would do. I helped a colleague get home safely, I left her water, I locked the door, and I did it all without any intent to cause harm. The aftermath, being placed on leave, the rumors, has been devastating for me and my daughter. I ask that Northway restore my position, compensate me for the lost wages, and issue a statement that clears my name." Lydia, who had been silent throughout, finally spoke. "Mr. Brooks, we recognize the impact of this situation on you and your family. The company's policy on workplace conduct is designed to protect all employees, but we also understand that misinterpretations can occur. We are prepared to offer you a full reinstatement, back pay for the period of leave, and a public apology to the staff." She paused, meeting Daniel's eyes. "We also propose a review of our policies regarding after-hours assistance and an employee training program on how to handle similar situations in the future." Daniel felt a wave of relief wash over him. He thanked them, and the meeting concluded with a handshake and a promise to finalize the paperwork within the week. As he left the room, he thought about the journey that had taken him from a quiet morning with Mia to a corporate battle, and finally to this moment of vindication. He realized that the experience, painful as it had been, had also revealed his own resilience and the importance of standing up for what is right, even when the world seems to conspire against you.
Later that evening, Daniel sat at the kitchen table with Mia, a fresh bowl of cereal in front of her, and a newly printed copy of the company's apology letter. He showed her the page, pointing out the words "clears his name" and "public apology." Mia looked at the paper, then at her dad, and said, "You're a hero, Daddy." Daniel smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. He didn't need a title or a promotion to feel heroic. He needed the knowledge that he had protected his daughter's sense of safety and that truth had finally prevailed. In the weeks that followed, Daniel returned to work, this time with a renewed sense of purpose. He joined a company that valued integrity, a smaller firm where his contributions were recognized and where his personal story became a catalyst for a new mentorship program for single parents. He also started a blog, sharing his experience with other single dads, offering advice on navigating workplace challenges, and emphasizing the importance of compassion. The blog quickly gained a following. Men from all over the country reached out, thanking him for speaking out, for giving them a voice. Daniel responded to each comment, reinforcing the idea that kindness should never be punished, that the systems we trust must be held accountable, and that single parents could find strength in community. One evening, as he tucked Mia into bed, she whispered, "Will you ever have to drive someone home again?" Daniel chuckled, pulling the blanket tighter around her. "No, kiddo. I'll keep my car for school runs and grocery trips." He kissed her forehead, feeling the weight of the past lift, replaced by a quiet confidence. He knew that life would always have its unexpected turns, but he also knew that with honesty, perseverance, and a little help from those who truly cared, he could navigate any storm. The final scene of his story was not a grand victory speech, but a simple, ordinary moment. A father and daughter sharing a laugh over a bowl of strawberry jam on toast, the sun streaming through the kitchen window, the leak on the ceiling still there, but no longer a symbol of neglect, now just a reminder that even imperfect roofs can shelter a family that refuses to give up. He began volunteering at a local community center, offering free workshops on financial planning for single parents. The sessions quickly filled, and participants praised his honesty and practical advice. As word spread, a small publishing house approached him to write a memoir about his experience. Daniel accepted, hoping his story would inspire others to stand up for kindness, even when the world seems hostile. He felt a renewed purpose, knowing his voice could protect more families for their future.